Good morning, everyone, again. My plan today, providing I don't run out of time, is to talk to you a little bit about project management in Hong Kong, a very urban environment. I've got some case studies that I can talk about because of what we're doing at the moment. And finally, if I've got time, some of the key factors that I think it might be important to yourselves in the Middle East. I have worked in the Middle East 5 or 6 years ago, so I understand a little bit about the way you operate. First of all, we're doing 5 extensions at the moment to our railways. Currently more than 20 billion US of spend. Much more than anyone else in the world at the moment, except for mainland China. We're extending our railway by 56 kilometers. And I can talk to you a little bit about some of the key challenges we've got, mainly on the interchanges with our existing railways. So I'll be coming back to this slide later and just pointing out where exactly I'm going to be talking about for our case studies. First of all, a little bit about MTR and are we an intelligent client? We've been operating for 35 years. With the number of people in such a small location, you would expect us to make our operations pay, and we do that. We're transporting 5 million passengers every day now. We've just reached 5 million, and it's going to increase once we open the lines, the first one, which will be the end of this year, sorry. And we have the unenviable pride of having a punctuality reliability of 99.95%. Can it be better? I don't know. What we're monitoring ourselves to try and establish new parameters to measure ourselves. I just noticed this week that we do an analysis of the passenger affected ratio, and we topped 1,000 journeys this week for the first time, which means that any passenger that uses the mass transit railway in Hong Kong would expect to carry out 1,000 journeys before they're affected in any way by any delays. And if we have delays of up to 15 minutes in any of our days, it usually reaches page 3 on the local newspapers, and if it goes above 15 minutes, it's right on the front pages. So the people in Hong Kong have very high expectations of their railway that we have to try and deal with. As you've heard previously, originally our preferred business model was rail plus property. We decide through our development teams new routes, possible routes. We identify locations where property would be very useful for us. Usually nobody wants to build above our depots, but that's been a very successful area for us. Put a station beside one of our depots and develop above that with a large podium which gives us supermarkets and shops and everything else that goes on, and then high-rise buildings that sit on top of that our property division and our commercial divisions make more money out of. And I think it's very important that we get all that feedback on what all of our different divisions aspire to when we come up with our scopes and specifications and standards for our designers and then our contractors. And we have various methods of contracting as well, which I'll come on to, each one suiting the risks associated with what we've got. Because we've been working for 37 years in total now,
The seminars will now be starting. Please make your way to the relevant seminar zone. Thank you.
Yeah, we do have strong governance. We write our own contracts, and we have a very strong can-do work ethic that is focused on making sure that we continue with our world-class performance of our operating railway. The other thing I would say is that we've currently got more than 30 projects under construction, varying from 120 million US to 1.2 billion US approximately. And everyone is different. Everyone is set up, and normally it's to do with the people working on each particular contract and the relationships they have. And the contractors have their own strategies, and we have to be always try to be one step ahead in the in any of our decision making with our contractors, and find out what's driving their behaviours so that we can best manage them. Working in Hong Kong has become very bureaucratic. It is very much approvals from all the various parties, whether it's environmental protection, transport department, railway protection, or fire services, etc. Everybody has their say now and has very strong things that they want to try and impose on us when we're building our new railways. And we have to get approvals from all parties. The second role that I have at the moment is, as well as obviously in the construction of all our major projects that's going on at the moment, is that I've moved my office to the West Kowloon terminus for the high-speed rail extension. One of the things that the Hong Kong public made very clear was that they didn't want a high-speed rail linking to mainland China, and so all of the railway, when it crosses the border, is underground, 26 kilometres, deeply underground, until it comes out at this spectacular terminus. And the impact when people come out they will. Sorry, how do I go back? Use this one. There's a very spectacular steel and glass structure that will impact people when they get off the trains and come up the escalators into the concourse areas. And from the outside, it will be quite spectacular. And this glass facade overlooks Hong Kong Island. And also, at the end of the day, the terminus is all underground, and it. Above so it'll be parkland and recreational areas, as well as these new properties that we're going to be building on top of it. The position at the moment, this terminus, by the way, is valued at over 4 billion US just for the terminus. It's just to get a little bit of detail. It's a kilometre long. It's in it's retained by a diaphragm wall box that obviously 2.5 kilometres a diaphragm wall box. It's right against the seafront at the far end, the top end, and it comes from the two tracks the twin tracks that come through the 26 kilometres to a 15 platform terminus, 6 for long-range, 400-metre-long platforms, 12-car trains to and 9 local within the immediate Guangzhou area of southern China. The intricacies of this are such that the diaphragm wall has to be load-bearing because we thought it might save us some money. And so all of the diaphragm walls had to be founded well into the granite, which is 30 and 40 meters below the surface in this area. And creating that interface and testing that interface put us into some delay, but we've had to, which we're having to recover, and we are doing so. The terminus was split into 4 major civils contracts, the biggest one being 1.2 billion US, and my role has been to get everybody together, including our designers. I've got 100 designers still on site, completing the designs. The E&M teams are already installing the back of house things at the far end of this picture, and I've got some other photographs of where we stand. This is a schematic of what it looks like. We've got a big box that has to be excavated, 4 million cubic meters of spoil. We're building the central core, which is here, as a bottom-up. So we excavate down, and we have to maintain the spoil against the diaphragm walls to maintain the stability of the diaphragm walls. And then at the outer edges, we are building it top-down so that we can close the two together to make it the most efficient. The big steel structure is on this side, where we've got something like 26 megacolumns, all highly stressed. You can see from the skeleton drawing here the intricacies of the permanent steel. The temporary structure that has to be built in order to install these steel structures is very, very high tech. It's one of the most difficult steel structures that's been attempted, and in trying to recover the delays here, we've had to change all of our sequencing, which means that the interrelationship on the temporary works designs, which was the responsibility of the contractor, go from the soil stability models here into the lateral support modeling that has to be taking place in the designs, and that into the connections between the steel structures and the concrete structures, and the movement of all of those, because the diaphragm walls are still moving considerable amounts until the excavation is complete. And then the very last piece of the design here is the glazing, and the stresses involved in putting together a very complex glazing system where every panel is different in its alignment and size and shape, means that all of that has to have a coordinated model for accuracy and survey, etc., etc. And so what I did was I got the contractor who didn't really understand the implications of that initially to employ an independent consultant to run the models all together and combine them into one, so that we got one robust structure at the end of the day, and it will be a very robust structure. And we've had to change a lot of the staff that were involved, and certainly in the contractors team, all of his major senior management have had to change because of the understandings of the complexities and the appreciations of the actual terminus. So don't set off until you actually understand all of the implications of what you're trying to achieve. You can fit an airport inside of this terminus box, and there are 4 levels as we come up. As you would an airport, you've got the trains at the basement level. You've then got departures level. You've got arrivals level, and you've got a concourse level above that. All of that is below ground, so it's quite an enormous project, and we've got 2 years to finish it. Just some up-to-date photographs. You can see the central core here being formed. You can see the start of the steel structure in this area. All of the back of house here is completed at the nearest the sea, and we have E&M installations. The chillers went in last week. Transformers are already being installed as well. So with one end of the project, we've got all of our integrated services in there, and at the other end, we're still excavating spoil, and we've still got a lot of spoil to excavate. So we've created a logistics team that manages all of the gates into and out of the site in a very thorough and robust manner. This is one of the photographs, and another one. This is how we report on a weekly basis to the rest of our management teams on how where we're working and what we're doing. Moving on, I wanted to talk about one of the other very complex construction that we're doing, which is, as I say, an interchange. This is a four-way interchange at Admiralty Station on Hong Kong Island, just to where the arrow is, where we've got a new line coming in, two new lines that will be coming in below the existing lines. And just to show you it in plan, the initial two lines, and this is these two lines go back 30 years. We have the one that crosses the harbour here. We have the island line here, and the original station, existing station, is here. And what we've got is we've got new lines going to the south of the island, and lines coming in across the harbour, second lines across the harbour, the Sha Tin Central Link. And this area here is the one that's, from a construction point of view, is very critical. We have to go underneath the existing island line. The area, just to put it in context, is about half the size of this room and twice as high. I worked that out yesterday. And we have to take that out in rock. And the island line, which runs here, wasn't actually built to be propped from underneath and supported underneath. It was designed to sit on solid rock, and we're taking that rock away. So it's not easy to actually provide the support, and we're having to do it with a whole series of extending pillars and coordinated jacking to make sure that the running railway, which is here in this photograph, isn't interfered with, and we'll be monitoring that to make sure nothing moves. So that's one of the most technically demanding interchanges, and that's why I say that interchanges are so vital, that you don't want to interfere with your existing line. And the two lower lines, this is a schematic, but it shows you how we're actually having to go underneath the existing concourses and put escalators in and atriums to make it impressive, because it's now right in the centre of our business district, main business district, and it is a critical interchange. We had some leave-behinds 5 years ago, and we've had to increase our headways and increase our trains to maintain Admiralty Station as a pleasant place to be, rather than a place that the public weren't happy and comfortable with. And we're having to extend that with two new lines coming into Admiralty. And just to show you where we are on the type of property we're doing, we don't put all of our railways underground. We also do viaducts as well. And this is coming into to one of the stations on the south side of Hong Kong Island, and this is where there are some offshoots into the depot. And so one of the financing of this line is by developing property above the depot, very close to this station, which you can see. Moving quickly on, another area that I would focus on is shown by the arrow, which is the interface between two new lines. Again, we're extending the original line, which stopped here. It's on one side, it extends across to Hong Kong Island, but this was an extension that was planned to go around here into this development against the harbour at Whampoa. We've had to change the location of that. We've got a very sharp bend, S-bend here, which is a drill and blast contract, to enable us to have an interchange here. And the funding for that will enable, is going to be by property development above the station. And so I've got too many pointers. This is a photograph of the work. The station is going to be in this area, and the property development will encompass all of this area, and it'll have some very good sight lines across the harbour. One of the reasons to show this is because there is an interchange, but the existing railway is here. And this is where risk management comes in, because we've got target cost contracts on this one and also on Admiralty, because we want to manage the risks. We want to know what the contractor's costs are, and we want to make all the decisions that need to be made to prevent any impact on our existing railway. And because of the closeness of that in this area, we wanted to keep control of that. As I said, we're front page news in Hong Kong, and so whilst the contractor might have an incident, he will probably recover his costs through insurance, etc. We can't live with the publicity, the media, etc., of something going wrong with one of our railways. And so we want to keep control of that. And just as an example of how close we get, this is the existing railway here. That has to keep going. That's our main railway line at the moment up into mainland China and the border. And we are building this underneath, and this very close to it at the side. And they get even closer in this area here. So in order to manage the construction of this, we're sharing the risks with a target cost contract with one of our contractors. Just moving on again to a slightly different area where we've got some technical demands. We go through a very old area of the city where this red arrow is, and we wind our way through against some very old buildings. And the cheapest and quickest way of building this station would be to knock all the buildings down around it, because they're all going to be knocked down when the station opens. Developers are going to come in, they're going to knock all the buildings down and build some high-rises instead, because everybody wants to live on top of a station. Incidentally, nobody wants to live near a ventilation shaft. Just bear that in mind, because that's where the opposition comes from. When it comes to a station, everybody wants to live above the station and the facilities that it affords. So this is very, very dense areas, some very old buildings. We've got one building that hasn't got any foundations. It's actually just been built between two adjacent buildings, totally illegal, and it's an 8-story building. And it hasn't got any foundations, it's just bolted, it's just fixed itself to the buildings beside it that have got foundations that may move differentially to each other. And so we're having to deal with the likes of that. Moving on, just some of the types of equipment that we're moving very close to the public. And this is one of the key factors, is managing the public's expectations. They're our key stakeholder. Some of the people who live near our mainline stations on our existing projects are our tenants on our property division, and so when they complain about noise or anything like that, we've actually got to recognise that and deal with it. We're driving our tunnels very, very close to existing foundations, which in itself is has to be well controlled and managed. Let me just go back on project management in general, because I think it is important. I think that I said that we have 30-odd contracts, and they're all being... We have a standard way of operating and procedures, etc., but we still have people involved. I know that in the Middle East, most of your project managers now, you're asking for PMP, so they should know process. But it's the soft skills that are really key, and it is the people. I put it down to the ability to judge value and foresee issues before they happen. Risk management, it could be, but it's even more than that. It's nous and experience. You've got to make sure you've got the correct contractual arrangements, and we vary them. We do have some design and build for our cross-harbour, for instance, where the risks are best managed by the contractor. And you've got to make sure that everybody involved in the project has the right incentives and the right behaviours to perform to their best. And everything needs to be well planned in detail. Don't accept anything that's not planned in detail. It means that the people involved don't actually understand what they've got to build. And we found that with our big terminus. Once we got into the detail, people's lack of knowledge was there. And I think that's a world issue for railways and construction of railways. There aren't enough resources in the world with the right amount of knowledge at all levels, whether it's designers, contractors, or even our own staff. We're finding it difficult to get the right level of control and supervision, because we manage and supervise all our work. Just to summarise, I'm there or thereabouts. I do talk about intelligent columns, and that's no reflection at all on people as clients. I think you've got to make sure that you're getting good advice. That's the key. From people who really understand what you want and what you're trying to achieve. Clearly define that and make sure everybody realises what your priorities are. It probably isn't cost in this instance, but it is in many areas of the world where cost is the key. Time is very important. In Hong Kong, time is cost, so we have cost and time demands. You've got to make sure that the people who are working on your projects are incentivised so that their behaviours reflect the way that you really want to operate. And these soft skills come from the identification of it through experience and getting the right people there. And my final comment, which I've written there, is that as clients, you need to consider carefully and make it clear to everybody what you want to achieve from your railway. And there isn't one best fit for all projects. As I say, we've got 30-odd, and they're all slightly different, and the behaviours of the people are different for each. And at that note, I would like to thank you for your attention, and any questions.